going on, everybody? So today I'm going to talk a little bit about my current training split. I know last episode that I kind of put out was built around me being in hypertrophy phase. So that phase is still continuing. This is kind of week 2, but we have adjusted slightly. So here I wanted to actually go over my current training split, not in exact detail with all the exercises, but just the format of what I'm doing and how that hypertrophy phase actually kind of looks in regards to my training. Because for me, what I've learned is I am a very strength-oriented individual. I like low reps, I like to push heavier weight, and I don't love pure bodybuilder hypertrophy personally for me. I've done it in the past. I enjoy aspects of it, and I enjoy incorporating some of those traditional principles and methodologies into my routine. But to do a straight hypertrophy phase, it's the most counterintuitive approach to my training. So even though I want to build muscle mass, and it's very helpful in doing that, I still want to make sure I'm a little bit more functional in terms of keeping my strength around. So even though I might play around and flirt with the idea of still kind of adding in some strength rep ranges and kind of big moving compound exercises to increase a little bit more of that motor, that gross motor movement with those big compound exercises, I can then pair that with hypertrophy work, and I kind of get the best of both worlds. So it's not pure strength, obviously, that I'm after, but I'm maintaining it, and I'm still getting that dense muscle look that I enjoy, and I'm keeping my strength numbers up there, but I'm really highly complementing that with a lot of bodybuilder hypertrophy work that's going to help build my body up and add a little bit of that cross-sectional area that I was previously mentioned on the last episode of what I was talking about for the 10 by 30 project. So that's currently what I'm doing right now. I kind of adjusted a little bit. We started incorporating, this is gonna be the first week of it, some Olympic movements, Olympic lifting. So I'm gonna be incorporating that in my routine. That's gonna be relatively low rep, more on the heavy side, but early on with Olympic weightlifting, in terms of the movement patterns, whether it's a snatch, power clean, a push press, hang clean, high pull, something of that nature, split jerk, those movements are relatively low intensity early on, and then you slightly move up. So low intensity in regard to if I'm doing 3 or 5 reps, I might be hovering around 70% week 1 and 75% week 2, where if I were to do a bench press or a squat or a deadlift for 5 or 3 reps, we're going to be in the 80 to 85% to 90% intensity rate. So it's a little bit different because it is so technical. So that's kind of the one difference. But I am still adding in some of those big compound movements. Like yesterday, I was doing back squats and I was working up to a heavy 5. And then I did some heavy RDLs around the 6 to 8 rep range. And then I added in the bodybuilder hypertrophy work to really kind of emphasize putting on more lean muscle tissue. So you can manipulate your routine to get the best of both worlds here. And for me, strength is such a priority, and doing and engaging in more of those high gross motor movements and lower rep ranges and higher intensities is really important to me. So if I'm not trying to build and necessarily like say a block of strength training, I can still add in some lower rep ranges so I keep my strength around and probably progress a little bit on the strength, but then I really emphasize the current phase around hypertrophy. So that's still the primary thing I'm after with this phase, and I feel like for my body, it works really well when I kind of add the two together, but I keep the strength relatively low volume, and then I just increase a higher volume towards more of the hypertrophy. So if that makes sense, I think it does. So right now what I'm doing is a 4-day split in the gym where I'm going to be incorporating, like I said, a lower emphasis, lower body emphasis versus strength, and then there's that bodybuilder traditional hypertrophy engagement, and then I'm going to do a Olympic lifting with a little bit of upper body push work. And then I'm going to take a rest day, and these rest days are kind of interchanged because even today was technically an active rest day, which I'll get into, and that was more of a low intensity steady state day, whether it is for some people hiking, walking. For me today it was, like I said, low intensity steady state, so I did a 5-kilometer run in the trail, Super cool, kept the heart rate in about zone 2, good to go. And then I move on to a Olympic lifting day with a little bit of lower body emphasis, staying in the low rep ranges, so 4x3s. And then we go into unilateral leg bodybuilding. So as you can see, I'm complementing some explosive, powerful work, full body work with the Olympic lifts, which is going to really send a loud signal to build strength and build power and actually add some muscle mass, do some low rep front squats, and then I add in that unilateral bodybuilder work that's going to help increase that cross-sectional area. And that tends to work really well for my body compared to just staying in a pure hypertrophy phase where everything is very bodybuilder-esque. Like I mentioned earlier in this video, that's just not the best response that I get, and I don't enjoy training as much, which is a huge part of how you should structure your routine. It doesn't mean you stay in the same thing that you always love. You don't always gravitate to that thing, but you find ways to add those things in slightly to make the workouts a little bit more attractive for you, and then you complement it or you build it around the phase that you should be in compared to what you necessarily want to be in. And then I add in the Olympic lifting day with some upper body pull work. So as you can see, I have an upper body pull day with Olympic lifts, I have an upper body push day with Olympic lifts, and I have 2 lower body days. Now in between those days, for my rest and my recovery, something that I pride my recovery on and why I haven't been hurt in my entire career of lifting. Yes, I've had pains and stuff of that nature, but I've never been sidelined. I've continued to train for near upwards of 15 to 20 years now, and that's with playing some relatively physical sports like wrestling and grappling and football, and also complementing that with ultra running, half Ironmans, ultra distance endurance racing, I wouldn't say distance, but ultra strength sessions where I'm lifting 100,000 pounds in a session at 1.5 times my body weight, or doing 50,000 pounds at 1.5 times my body weight for 10 days in a row, stuff of that nature, which takes an incredible amount of muscular endurance and also complemented with strength because it's 1.5 times my body weight. Yet I've been able to recover and come back strong and never been sidelined. So for me, what I largely equate that speedy recovery to and keep my body nice and healthy is the consistent circulation and blood flow and movement that I allow my body to go under. And that's after tough training sessions like yesterday, heavy back squats, going into some RDLs, and then doing some supplementary accessory work for the hamstrings. And then today I complemented that with low intensity steady state trail running. So I kept the heart rate low, but for me this speeds up recovery and I don't have to keep going through this process where I train hard and I feel beat up for 2 days and I take in the days off to just focus on recovery. This is a way for me to get more work in, so I increase my work capacity. It actually speeds up recovery and it allows me to be more optimal in my training session tomorrow. So I'm getting so many extra benefits by keeping my body moving this way. Like I said, if I can increase my work capacity, get more total volume in, now I'm able to complement my strength sessions with some low intensity aerobic work. That's only going to complement what I do in the gym. It's going to allow me to have greater work capacity in the gym where I can handle more stress, more volume, more time under tension appropriately because my body's used to that demand, and I speed up recovery, so I'm a higher performing athlete in my sessions. So it's a win-win for me, really, and it's really tough for me to get hurt because my body is just used to this daily movement, and I use movement and circulation as my optimal recovery. It's my go-to recovery practice. Unlike a lot of people that engage in flexibility and mobility and these other hacks, don't get me wrong, I still engage in those every now and then. Even if we're talking about cold plunges or cold tubs or saunas, those are things I would love to do daily. I don't necessarily have access to that daily, nor do I want to always be so focused on that. For me, I use the recovery, or I use the movement that I do in my low intensity training sessions as my optimal go-to way of recovery, and it works really well. And not to be someone who's going to toot their own horn here, but I'm pretty good at knowing how to get my body to recover under a high demand and high stress. And obviously, I've done a lot of crazy things, but I haven't been injured, and I've been able to duplicate myself the next day under those high stress demands because I know how to recover, I know how to eat and fuel, and I know how to give my body what it needs to increase its ability to handle stress appropriately and recover at a sufficient rate. So that's my current training split. So as you can see, lots of focus on traditional bodybuilding, but it's complemented with some powerlifting and some Olympic lifting, low rep range segments. That way, I'm kind of getting the best of both worlds with the strength and the power, but I'm still primarily focused on the hypertrophy. That's still the base of what I'm doing. If I was in a traditional strength phase or power phase, I wouldn't be doing as much complementary accessory work for hypertrophy, right? I wouldn't necessarily be engaging in over 100 reps or 9 to 10 sets of bodybuilder focused work on those push or on those power and strength days, right? I'd probably do maybe 1 or 2 movements to complement my strength and power development. Where here, like I said, I'm doing about 6 sets to 9 to 10 sets of bodybuilder work post those power and strength movements. And the way I base that, or the way I kind of program that, is my total volume on the strength work isn't as intense as it would be if it was pure strength, right? So maybe I'm gonna get up to 1 or 2 really hard working sets. Like yesterday, I was doing barbell back squats for sets of 5, and I kind of did a ramp up, right? Or my first set was at 325, my second set was at 335, and then my third set, 3x5, was at 350. So I had a ramp up to basically a genuine, really tough 5 reps at 350. Probably could have mustered up, into the 360, 365. I'm looking forward to doing that next week, considering this is the first week, so no need to panic and rush into that. Let my body get used to it, and then I'll slowly kind of ramp up by 5 or 10 pounds, ideally every single week. So by the end of the phase, I'm doing 370s by 5, and my first set's at 350. So that could work really well. And then on top of that, just to kind of sum up this video, I also do a lot of complementary hamstring work. So on days like this, if I was in the gym and I was doing some low intensity steady state, or I was doing some conditioning work, whether it's some strongman endurance or anaerobic conditioning, I would also complement that with a lot of hamstring work and lower back work, just to give my body a little bit more resiliency and durability. And working my hamstrings and glutes are key to my training, right? So I usually do that through a lot of sled work, but I also really engage in those movement patterns that are promoted out of Westside Barbell so heavily. So movements like the reverse hyper, which I now have access to at a particular gym. The glute ham raise is a big one, obviously. Nordic hamstring curls, hip extensions, back extensions. I just incorporated some good mornings as well into my routine. Last week, after a hard training session, leg day that was, I came in the next day and did accessory work, low intensity accessory work, so 3x15, 3x12, so obviously the weight wasn't huge, and I was playing around with those 3 movements. I did good mornings from the concentric only, so I kind of was in a pin position, and then I just focused on the up and then a fast negative, so I wasn't incorporating or occurring any more muscle damage than I needed to. Then I focused on some reverse hypers, and then I did some glute ham raises. So great way for me to build up my posterior chain, get a lot of direct low back and hamstring and glute work, but not overwork the body, and it actually will help me get a lot stronger faster. So movements like the squat and deadlift, if I want those numbers to continue to go up, I can't keep throwing more weight or more sets of those big movements at it. That's gonna really drain my body, beat my body up. The best thing I can do is do a lot of complementary accessory work to build up my low back and build up weak points like the hamstrings, the glutes, hip extension, and good mornings, which are a very powerful low back and hamstring exercise. So do things that build the base around what you're trying to actually get stronger at, and then every now and then you kind of throw in a big movement like a deadlift, or at least you do variations of it week to week, and that way you're not draining your system and feeling like you need tons of recovery days. So that's a whole deeper conversation, but with me and my training, I have a pretty good idea of how to do that. So that's what I'm currently doing on my training split. I'm looking forward to this next 4 to 5 weeks of building some more muscle tissue, eating a few more calories, engaging in some Olympic lifting movements, and seeing those numbers slowly get up and the proficiency of those movements increase. Then also get stronger, right? See those numbers on the back squat, the deadlift, slowly go up a little bit as well. Like I said, I'm not fully jumping into a massive strength phase. That's to come. soon. And at that time, I'll be doing a lot more hard triples and doubles and maybe even some singles. And with that, the volume's going to go down and the bodybuilder focus techniques and volume is going to go down as well. All right, guys, hope you enjoyed this video. Like always, be sure to subscribe to the channel down there at the bottom somewhere. Like it, turn on the little button for notifications so when the video does come out, you're going to get notified, so that way you can get some more valuable content.